While a lot of the faces and names changed for the Chicago Bears in 2013, ultimately the result was exactly the same as it had been the season before and the season before that, and you might even argue it was a little bit worse. You go 10-6 in 2012, you fire Lovie Smith, you bring in an offensive guru, if you will, an offensive focused head coach. You're going to shift the philosophy of the organization. And all of that change led to an 8-8 record and losing out on a chance when the floodgates had opened to be able to win the NFC North and make the playoffs. And, it was another disastrous season, frankly, for the Chicago Bears, another mediocre season for this team. Most people that aren't named me didn't envision the big drop off in the defense that was to come in 2013, which I did. I said that this defense was not going to be nearly as good, and I thought it was foolish that they were going to sit there and continue to run the same scheme from the previous regime, the regime that had ultimately been fired in part because what they did wasn't good enough all those years before. Even I couldn't envision, as much as I thought the defense was going to take a big step back in 2013, just how bad and brutal they ultimately ended up being. So it shouldn't be any surprise heading into this offseason that, similar to what Trestman did in the draft and free agency after the 2012 season, was now going to be done to the defensive side of the ball in this past offseason after the 2013 season. You have a lot of new faces and new names brought into the fold on defense. Big signings like Jared Allen and Lamar Houston, Willie Young. You bring in Ryan Mundy at safety. You draft Kyle Fuller in the first round, the defensive back out of Virginia Tech. You draft guys like Ego Ferguson and Will Sutton and Brock Vereen in the fourth round. A lot of emphasis on the defensive side of the ball, which was the right course of action for Phil Emery and the Chicago Bears organization to take. They did lose some pieces. You cut Julius Peppers because of salary cap considerations. You allow Henry Melton, who missed most of the 2013 season with the torn ACL, to leave via free agency and go sign with the Dallas Cowboys. You let Corey Wooten go. You let Major Wright go. You let Michael Bush go. So there were some pieces that, were key players in the past that are no longer in the fold either. So looking ahead to 2014, what are going to be some of the strengths of this team? I think first and foremost, you got to look at the offensive weaponry for this team. Something you maybe never thought you would say about the Chicago Bears, but you have arguably the best 1-2 combination at wide receiver in all of the NFL in Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey, two big physical specimens at wide receiver. Alshon Jeffrey being a little bit more of the deep threat, the explosive playmaker, where Brandon Marshall is more of the steady Eddie, the guy, the go-to target. But that's not all. You've got Martellus Bennett, another huge monster, a 6'6" tight end who creates all types of matchup problems with his size, his strength, his quickness, his explosiveness. Then you've got one of the best all-around running backs in the National Football League in Matt Forte, who has the ability to beat you running the ball as a pass catcher as well. A lot of weapons for Jay Cutler and that Chicago Bears offense, no question about it. I also view the offensive philosophy and the approach of the Chicago Bears on that side of the ball as a bit of a strength. I like how they don't get away from the running game. They do try to emphasize the running game. I like how this offense focuses on quick decisions and getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly, or at least it's supposed to. And I also like their willingness to gamble, to take chances, and to throw the ball down the field. You've got Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey and Martellus Bennett. Why not air it out some? Why not take those chances down the field? You have to. You can't always play it safe and 3rd and 8, throw it 3 yards and go for the punt and try and change field position. I really do like the offensive philosophy and approach of Mark Trestman and his offensive coaching staff. And I do like the pass rush talent and depth that this team has. I mean, Jared Allen, Lamar Houston, Willie Young, they have some guys that can get after the quarterback. And I like the fact that they might be able to utilize a rotation. Maybe some other young guys step up into the fold as well. That rotation was a big key to the success of Lovie Smith's cover 2 defenses over the years, and I think you need to have that type of pass rush rotation at defensive end, similar to what the Seattle Seahawks had, this past season when they won Super Bowl 48. In terms of question marks, though, to me, first and foremost, I don't care if it pisses off fellow Bear fans or not. Jay Cutler is the question mark of question marks. I mean, 5 years, and we decide you're going to give them 3 more. 5 years apparently still hasn't proven that he is not a franchise quarterback. 5 years has not proven that this guy cannot stay healthy and is not the type of guy that you are going to win a championship with. So he is the ultimate question mark. They gave him that huge contract in the offseason. They gave Aaron Rodgers money to a guy who can't fucking beat Aaron Rodgers. So at some point in time, the excuses must stop. All the bullshit must end. And it is up to Jay Cutler to actually show, now that he has the offensive line supposedly in front of him, now that he supposedly has all the weapons he needs, now it's time for him to show. If last season didn't show you that there were no more excuses, then this season sure as hell should. And if this guy can't stay healthy or this guy can't play like the Pro Bowler he was supposed to be when the Bears traded for him in 2009, then what the fuck are you going to say? I do have some questions about the offensive depth of the Bears because while the starters are very good, they really lack depth in a lot of places. I mean, to me in the NFL, it's just as important to stretch out opposing defenses horizontally as it is vertically. And you need guys in the slot, those quick twitch athletes like the Packers have in Randall Cobb and the Seattle Seahawks have in Percy Harvin and other teams that have these players, what the St. Louis Rams will have in Tavon Austin, like the Colts have in T.Y. Hilton. You got to have those type of guys, and the Bears don't have them. And frankly, if either a Brandon Marshall or Alshon Jeffrey goes down, what else do they really have at wide receiver? The answer is at this point, nothing. Nothing established, that's for sure. If Bennett misses any significant time at tight end, then you go back to having more of a blocking option at tight end and you miss out on another key weapon in your passing game. That depth on the offensive line also concerns me because as good as the line played in 2013, especially compared to previous years, part of the key to the success was that they played all 16 games. All 5 starters did. So there was a lot of continuity there. You could count on those same guys in the lineup week in and week out. It's very rare to get in back-to-back seasons with an offensive line. And if Kyle Long goes down or a Jermon Bushrod goes down or a Matt Slauson goes down, for example, where's the replacement? Where's the guy that can ably and capably step in? I don't know if that guy exists on the roster. And then I look at the age of the defensive unit as well. This is a defense that has been built through free agency, what have you. It is old. You're talking about Jared Allen's in his 30s. DJ Williams, a potential starter, is in his 30s. Lance Briggs is in his mid-30s. Both of your starting corners, Tim Jennings and Charles Tillman, are in their 30s. There's a lot of older starters on the defense, and when you have an older unit, they tend to be injured, you tend to see a decline in play, and they tend to be a defense viewed one way in terms of name and reputation, and their performance in no way matches up to that name and reputation. Looking ahead to the schedule this year, just like the other teams in their division, their AFC division they have to run through is the East. In the NFC, they go through the South. And then they also have to play San Francisco and Dallas in terms of those other NFC conference games. 4 of their first 6 games are on the road. So there's a challenge there early on in the season for the Bears to come out of the gate well, and be able to win a couple of games on the road. Because ultimately, to be a success in the NFL, you have to be able to win away from home. Something the Bears didn't do a very good job of in 2013. They've got to get better on in 2014. They've got to do a better job of it right out of the gate. And I will say there's one key stretch where the Bears can potentially make some hay if they get through that early part of the season relatively well with 4 of those first 6 games on the road. 5 of their 6 games between week 11 and week 16 are at home. So 5 out of 6 weeks, they've got home games. You've got 2 games at home, then a road game, and then 3 straight home games, weeks 14, 15, and 16. If the Bears are floating around at all, if the Bears are even in striking distance of, let's say, a Detroit or a Green Bay in that division, the Bears have the opportunity to really control their own destiny and make a lot of hay there late in the season, get on a late season run, and build a lot of momentum potentially for the playoffs. When you talk about the keys to success for this team, Cutler staying healthy and playing up to his goddamn contract. At some point in time, this guy's actually got to play like the franchise quarterback that so many people try to tell me that he is, even though he's clearly established he isn't. And it's even more important that this guy actually for once stay healthy and actually for once play like a Pro Bowler in Chicago, because the backups behind him are guys like Jimmy Clausen and Jordan Palmer, and that's not going to win you anything in the National Football League. This defense, with all these new faces and new pieces, both young and old alike, needs to gel, they need to mesh, and they need to at least be average as a unit. They don't have to be great, but they can't be terrible again. Otherwise, it's going to be more of the same. And for this team, in terms of when you look at their schedule and look at where they need to win and who they need to beat, in order for this team to have any designs or plans or visions of making the playoffs. They must beat Green Bay at least once in 2014, and they must go 4-2 in the NFC North. If they sit there and they can't beat Green Bay and they go 2-4 or 3-3 in the division, you can forget about it. You could take all that playoff talk and you could pound it up your ass because it's not happening. How did they finish in the division last year? 2-4. Where did they end up last year? Sitting at home watching the playoffs just like me. They have to do better in the division if they have any visions of doing some great things. In terms of my prediction for this team, I don't see why so many people are so hot on this team. This is a team that was 10-6 in 2012. They fired Lovie Smith because that wasn't acceptable. So they changed their offense and they improve it dramatically, and they end up going 8-8. Yet all of a sudden now they make all these moves on the defensive side of the ball. They don't have any depth on the offensive side. Their team as a whole is old. In particular, on the defensive side of the ball, they got frighteningly old and lack depth. And I'm supposed to believe that this is a 10 or 11 win team and one of the premier teams in the NFC. I mean, let's be realistic. They struggled to beat Green Bay, even though victory over Green Bay last year came with Josh McCown at quarterback and after Aaron Rodgers got hurt. I don't see it. And I don't get what the big deal is. And I don't understand why so many people are so hot on the Chicago Bears like they're the second coming of Christ in the NFC. They got steamrolled by Philadelphia last year in Week 16. They consistently can't beat the Green Bay Packers. And you really expect me to, that, by the way, they lost to Detroit twice last season. They lost to New Orleans, and they sure as hell aren't good enough to beat teams like Seattle and San Francisco in the NFC. So how the hell is this team poised for greatness? I don't think they are. I think they're going to suffer a couple of big injuries on offense. Maybe one of their receivers or their tight end goes down for an extended period of time. One or two of their offensive linemen miss this time. Cutler's bound to get hurt, whether it be for one game or six. It's going to happen. And then what happens? They don't have talent or depth on their roster to make up for some of those injuries, especially at the quarterback position. There's no Josh McCown to hold the fort and play better than Cutler this year. You got Jordan Palmer, Jimmy Clausen, or David Fales. I like Fales, but good luck to you. And then defensively, just because you change your faces, just because you change the names, doesn't necessarily mean you got better. For all the additions in the offseason to improve the pass rush of the team, we forget that the biggest weakness on this defense last year was their inability, total complete lack of inability to be able to stop anybody in the running game. And Jared Allen's not going to help there. Lamar Houston helps some, but Willie Young's not really going to help there. And you're sitting there and you're pinning your hopes inside on the defensive line on a 32-year-old Jay Ratliff and Stephen Paye. Just think about that for a second. They did nothing to improve that weakness that is the linebacking core. I think the Bears are set up for a bit of a disastrous season. I could see this being a team that sits there and teases some people early and then falls apart as the season goes along, especially as injuries and et cetera start to happen, as teams start to adjust to what the Chicago Bears do on both ends of the ball. I think this is a team that will be lucky to finish 7-9 and finish third in the NFC North, and frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if they only won 5 or 6 games and finished last in the division. Look, just because I'm a Bears fan doesn't mean that I'm going to smoke the good stuff and buy the bullshit that a lot of other Bears fans and a lot of other national sports media types are. I see a lot of indicators and a lot of concerning areas for me with the Bears heading into 2014. And just like I talked about, accurately predicted in 2013 that the Bears were going to sit there and struggle defensively, I anticipate more defensive struggles in 2014, and I don't think the offense will be as good.